Excellent. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk to Danielle podcast. I am your host, Danielle C. Baker. And before we get started, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. And of course, this is season 4. So I do invite you to have a look at the 3 previous seasons. There may be some topics, there are some guests that will bring on a topic that resonates with your reality now. There are timeless episodes, so go have a look. And we're going to jump right in with this episode. I am excited about this one because this is something I say regularly in the work that I do, that what we don't heal in ourselves will come out in our parenting. And I have the guy just for that today. He's going to walk us through what that looks like and what we can do to make sure that we're not just passing on generational trauma. I have Dr. Hector Rodriguez with me, or Dr. Hector. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for so much for having me. And I'm looking forward to this conversation because it, it- I think it's something that a lot of people kind of live through or have experienced it, but they don't realize it, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. Although I completely understand it's something that's, especially uh, it goes with every aspect of life. Of course, I'm going to touch a little bit on parenting here, but especially with parenting, is you just at one point you're just going with the flow. Like there's so many things coming at you, and you don't even realize it. And a lot of the times, our children trigger us, and there's nothing we can do about it because I mean we love them unconditionally, right? So it's harder. They really hold that mirror up to us, so it's difficult. I really do appreciate the work that you do. We'll get into more of that, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself first and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So, well, I'm a integrative psychiatrist, and I got an opportunity to go into more of the integrative approach in psychiatry after working at Amen Clinics for a few years. And it was just getting here in the first place is a little bit all over all over the place. I used to be a fashion photographer, and I realized that I would spend a lot of time talking to my patients. Well, not my patients; they weren't my patients, my subjects at the time, about like their life struggles and who they were. And mainly, I would do that so I can like kind of understand them more, have them feel more comfortable on the set. So when I would do that, I realized that I really enjoyed doing that, like getting to know people from different walks of life and things like that. So later I decided to go to medical school, and then once I'm in medical school, psychiatry was never like on top of my list of specialties that I wanted to specialize in. It was just kind of like a thing that I was a little bit oblivious about, or just had a little bit of knowledge enough to get through the class, but not feel that I was passionate to work in that area. And it wasn't until like my last few weeks of medical school that I was matched to work with a psychiatrist that really just transformed the way that I saw what I thought psychiatry was. And from there, I mean, it just kind of became this snowball effect of wanting to be focused more on not just treating the brain or the brain disorders, which is what we tend to really only focus on in psychiatry, but look at the whole person as and as a whole, but then also more specifically looking at their soul and paying attention to what it is to treat those wounds that we sometimes struggle in life, and I call them like wounds to my soul. And It kind of brought me to work with Dr. Amen and the SPEC scans, and how we can actually see trauma patterns in the SPEC scans, and how sometimes, person A might manifest those stressors or traumatic events very different from person B, but still on the scan, they had the same patterns. So I became very passionate about learning more about those specific brain areas that were kind of lighting up on the scan, so to speak. So it kind of brought me all like full circle, because then it turned out that I was doing then the same kind of interviews that I was doing when I was a photographer. So it was like this weird thing that occurred. And of course, everything in hindsight, you realize that, oh, so that's why I was put to do that first, and then this other thing. So it's just really fascinating, and I'm just very excited to be where I'm at today in my career, and all the people that I get to work with.
I love that. And you're so right that there's when you take a step back and you look, at your life. You realize that there's that one thing that just keeps, no matter where you go in your walk of life, it brings you back to that. So yeah, indirectly, you wouldn't think in photography, but yeah, absolutely
Yeah,
with
big
your
time.
subjects. What I like about your work too is you just mentioned it is it's not just the brain, not just the psychology of it, because that happens a lot in the medicine field, medical field is we compartmentalize. Oh my goodness, I can't say that word today. So let's just we isolate the different body parts.
Yeah.
Not, when in fact they all kind of blend in together. So you bring in that aspect as well to have a broader look at what's really going on. Before we go on about how our traumas and our past experiences can come out in our parenting, can you kind of share with us some people hear about depression, anxiety, PTSD? We are openly talking about this now, but are there any aspects of it that we should be talking more about that people may not know that is related to it, that it would be good to start these conversations as well?
Well, I think it starts with understanding stress.
Mm,
And how the body perceives stress and how it's shown or manifested in you, like the individual. And I think once we start looking at it like that, it really just changes from diagnosis or like what we think is a cluster of symptoms to tell us, oh, this person has depression or anxiety or PTSD, but more of like, okay, how does your body respond to stressors?
right.
What are the patterns that we see in you that lets me know that was a stressor that kind of got all those symptoms going? Um, it really just changes the whole thing. Um, and I try to do that with every single one of my patients. I start paying attention to, okay, well, what are the typical things that show up or let you know that you faced a stressor?
Hmm.
Little, big, medium, whatever, right? We need to learn that first. Because I think a lot of people, when they don't view it that way, then they think like, well, I don't have a traumatic event. I've never experienced trauma. I don't know what you're talking about, right? Because it starts off with the wrong definition of trauma. And I think for many years, we've been taught that trauma is rape, an assault, war, anything catastrophic. But
Yeah.
even at the DSM-5, I mean, someone could be diagnosed with PTSD because they have witnessed it,
Yeah.
right? So I always was very intrigued by that distinction. And then I saw in clinical practice what people were really telling me. I'm like, well, you're checking all the boxes for PTSD, but the person is like, well, I've never experienced traumatic events. So I don't know what you're talking about. Right.
Right.
So then obviously that's what starts the whole thing with me, like trying to research and study more how the nervous system lets us know that someone experienced a traumatic or a stressful event. So I
Yeah.
start with that. I try to keep it, I tell my patients, I try to keep it things as simple as possible. I think we
Mhm.
tend to complicate things more. And I don't know why we do that, but we do, we complicate things. And it's like, okay, well, what is your thing that lets you know? But then also, what are the things that are letting other people know that you're acting different?
Right.
That something about you is off.
Yeah.
And then I go into like, well, you see, it's not just a rape or a stressor or whatever. Like it's a lot more than that. So if
Yeah.
that's the case, then we got to dive in deeper.
That's like that because I working with children is when I started to notice as well. It's not necessarily a specific traumatic,
Thing. Right.
life-threatening event. Because working with children, it could just be a changing teacher or the
Hmm.
teacher's your favorite teacher. We're talking preschoolers who are finally feel comfortable in their new setting, and now their favorite teacher is gone for the
It's
day.
gone. Right.
It's a stress, and parents would think, well, that's nothing, but it's nothing for you,
For
but
you.
it's everything. And that's why there's so, if we jump into the adult world, going through the same situation, but we handle it differently. It's the same event, is the same, pattern, but we experience it differently because of those other factors. So it's really interesting when you go into it. And because
Mhm.
you study patterns, and this is what I love as well, is just the patterns. Can you give us some examples of how our past traumas and everything else, the baggage that we carry along, how can that show up in our parenting style and how we transfer that over?
Usually it shows up as simple as someone being uh, overprotective. Okay, so
Hmm.
we hear that word, right? Oh, you're being overprotective. Oh, you're not, you're hovering over them, right? That tends to be, for me, a trauma response because it lets me know that you've experienced something scary, right?
Hmm.
And you just don't want now your young, right? Your offsprings to experience it too. So we become protective. And I don't see that as a negative or a positive thing. I just see that as that's a trauma response, right? So if we start seeing that that's happening not once but like always, or your child falls running,
Yeah.
and your immediate response is this savior response,
Hmm.
let them fall, let them learn to get up and move forward, right?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to neglect them and leave them there if something serious, like really seriously occurred. That's the whole different thing, right? But it's the part of being too startled,
Hmm.
right? That's okay. Just tell them to get up and come to us. Let them get out of that struggle, that initial feeling of just, feeling unsteady, feeling unsafe.
Yeah.
Let them know that then they can go to safety, right? So when I see those two things, right, the startle response and then just the overprotective, always looking for the tiger to attack, those to me are letting me know that this person, obviously the parent, has experienced traumatic or stressful events, right? Let's not even use the word trauma, but stressful events in their life.
Yeah.
We got to work on things because when we don't allow our child to figure it out, right? To get out of that little ditch, right?
Hmm.
To get out of that moment of feeling uncertain, unsafe, or whatever. You're robbing them from solving their own problems.
Yeah.
Yes, you come out as a hero, you get your little dopamine rush, you feel like amazing, but not them.
Yeah.
And then it's the repetitive thing that tends to occur, then it keeps that child from learning that things are hard, that things don't always go my way, that
Yeah.
that life sometimes can throw something at me and I'm gonna be like, what the heck was that? And then I won't know how to solve and look for a solution.
Hmm.
And that's a big thing, right? And it's as simple, and I throw, you hear me saying the word, it's as simple as this, but it's as simple as leaving them there for a few minutes. Let them come to you,
Yeah.
right? Let them know that you are their safety so they can come to you, but don't immediately rush to them. Let them do it,
Yeah.
right?
That is such an important thing to teach our children because then they don't know how to react when there's something
Yeah.
really stressful if they've never had to do it, right? So there's a couple of things there when you have the children that fall and then they just wait to see your reaction before they start crying. That is a
Crying.
really good
Yep. Yeah.
example of,
Yeah.
are you the one pushing the stress on the child?
Hmm.
Or yeah, exactly. So, and then I love that. Let them
Hmm.
learn to come to safety as opposed to stay in it and freeze or, all of the other thing too is the helicopter parents, right? The ones that are
Yeah.
constantly, that is one thing, that's very common now where we have
Hmm.
the bubble
Hmm.
children now,
Yeah.
where there's just projecting your fear onto a child that needs to discover their environment and need to
Hmm.
realize what could be a potential danger and what is not and how to feel safe and all of that. So I think it's
Yeah. That's how
100%.
we learn that the stove is hot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Our body, our nervous system has to figure out, how to use its sensory information. So if we don't let them experience that, it's like I have patients and friends that have like little tiny babies, right? Less than 1 years old. And they're like, oh my God, like I don't want them to fall. I don't want them to like, you know, no, it's okay.
yeah,
Let them because their body has to get used to absorbing all this sensory information, them to know what is hard and what is soft,
yeah,
what should I stay away from and what should and also the fact that they're always going to be defiant, right? They want to try, not
yeah.
necessarily you, but they want to try because they're curious. So let them have that curiosity.
That's it.
because then later they'll know, okay, no, that hurt. I'm not gonna do that again, right? Or that was safe, that was okay. I can jump on that,
Yeah.
right? Um, and giving them the ability to also be curious is what allows the nervous system and the brain to grow and adapt to its environment. So if we don't, so you see how many things we can rob them from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Problem solving, curiosity, looking for ways to keep themselves safe. You know, now you can always be around. I always use the example of, the mama bird that pushes the little baby bird off the nest. Push him off the nest. It's okay. You know, if the
Yeah.
wings are good now, you see if they're about to hit the ground, then you go and save them. That's different, right? Because, okay, they weren't ready. But eventually, you need to push them off so then they could be ready. you
Exactly.
know and I think we complicate things sometimes by trying to assume that we are unique. We're not unique. We're animals. you know and learn from, like, that's why I said, like, the birds, right? Learn from the other animals. What do they do, you
Yeah.
know because we have to build them to be resilient, and that's the thing that I am always preaching about. It's resilience. And I think several generations today, I would say, are really lacking in resilience because they've
Yeah.
always been told, yes, it's okay
Yeah.
to tell them no, because life sometimes tells you no, and also life tells you, I don't care about you, and
Yeah.
figure it out, right? So
And it's okay that
And
people
it's
don't like it.
okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Because then that
Yeah.
allows you to start problem solve. Okay, then how do I figure this out? Where do I need to go? How do I get out of this difficult situation? Right? Um, and if they have you as support, I think what happens is sometimes as parents, we forget what the word support really means.
Right.
Support is not solving their problems. Support is like the little guardrails in the bowling alley. You know what I mean?
That's it. That's
But
it.
eventually, you got to take them off. So then they learn to keep the ball where it needs to go and not go off on the side thing. I forgot what that's called.
Yeah. The gutter. Yeah. The
The
gutter.
gutter. There you go, the gutter. So then
Yeah.
that's how you learn, and they build resilience.
Yeah.
But if we are always there, just kind of, that's not support.
Yeah. That's
That's
true.
robbing them of their own growth and their own development.
That is so true. One of the first experiences I had when I started working in early childhood education was in a preschool. We were outside at the park, and I had this little boy. I put him up on the monkey bars because he wanted to go on the monkey bars.
Yeah.
And I waited till he was, good and solid, and I slowly let him go. And he fell, like he just dropped. He let go and he dropped. He didn't hurt himself, but he started throwing a tantrum. He was frustrated. He was angry because he fell, and I was just, and then I realized that his parents, when they took him to the park, they always held him when he was going from bar to bar. So
Yeah.
this boy never realized that there's a gravity. He didn't even know. Like he thought he just magically flew from one bar to the other. And I was just looking at him saying, sweetie, you're angry at gravity right now. There's nothing you can do about this. We need to learn how to. So I had an interesting conversation with the parents to say, like, they thought they were doing well to make sure that their child doesn't get hurt, but the child didn't know what getting hurt meant because he never
Mhm.
got to experience it, but
Never
he
got
wasn't hurt or
right.
anything. So
Right.
you're right. You're robbing your children of necessary skills of
Hmm.
determining that critical thinking skill, as well as
Hmm.
natural
Hmm.
consequences that happen, to say, okay, is this worth being defiant, or should I really be listening right now? Right. And then go from there. So I like that it doesn't have to be traumatic where you're dumping your childhood traumas to your child. It's something as simple as you want to provide safety that maybe you didn't feel when you were growing up to your
Right.
child. Now you're taking it a little step further and preventing them from being able to cope with life when life
Hmm.
happens. So I do
Hmm.
appreciate that. There's one thing too, when I was work with parents a lot, when we start talking about how on it's not a conscious thing. You do it unknowingly, that you start projecting your fears or your
Yeah.
stressors to your children. It's that they start feeling guilty. to say, oh my goodness, like I've become my parent, you know, or they start feeling guilty about how far it's gone. So how what would you be your recommendations, or what role does guilt have in the parenting when they start noticing how much they are actually projecting on their children?
Well, I think with guilt is a feeling, it's a sensation that I try to tell people to like, first let's check on that.
Yeah,
Right? Is that really guilt? Or again, is that you trying to prevent someone from learning, right? From having their own experience. The same thing goes with like, if someone is like telling you, hey, stay away from so and so or whatever because this is a bad person. Okay, that was your experience with that person. That doesn't necessarily
right.
mean that that person is a bad person or whatever, right? So the same thing goes with when you're dealing with your kids. First, kind of check yourself to see is this feeling of guilt, is it coming from my own unresolved
Mm,
stressor towards my parents, right? Or just my own unresolved stressor towards other people because I just don't trust people.
right, right,
So first we got to check that. Is it really guilt, or you just kind of mask it with the feeling of guilt because you think that if I feel guilty, it must be a good thing for me to feel this way.
right.
Where's that? Is it really guilt? you know because I think when it comes to guilt is a tricky feeling or sensation that I've known with patients clinically that it's more coming from their own unresolved issue about XYZ and really has nothing to do with their child.
Hmm.
So then I go into, okay, so then now let's look at that decision, that thing that you want to do with your child, that to protect them or whatever. Is that really what you want to do to protect them?
Right,
And most of the time they're like, well, no, you're right. I really want them to just experience it for themselves. Okay, well then let them experience it for themselves.
right.
And then you have to really let them,
That's the
And,
other
and that
part.
sometimes is because then that's when you start really seeing when I see them again, they're like, so how did it go? They're like, oh my gosh, I was dying. Okay, but why were you dying? Why were you having that feeling of fear?
Yeah.
Because I remember when that happened to me or something similar. Ah, okay. So now we really see that surface that is an obvious event or stressor that you haven't resolved in your own psyche and your own subconscious. So then we got to work on that because they're always going to face things that might be scary to you. But
Yeah.
that's a time in their life where, for whatever reason, their brain has been wired to be fearless. Why? Because they have to explore.
Hmm.
They have to try. And if you don't let them, you're, again, preventing them from having their own conclusions and their own experiences. And if
Yeah.
we're trying to raise functioning, good adults in society, they need to be able to expose to touching the burner. Let them get burned. Trust me, they won't burn it. They won't touch it again.
It's like you don't let
You
them
know?
fall into the fire, but let
Right.
them get close so they know what
Exactly. So
heat
they know, oh, wait, this
is.
is heat. Yeah, no, this is not for me.
Yeah, because
You
it's
know?
very seldom a child will actually touch an open flame because once they feel that heat, they're going to move
They
away.
won't. They
Uh,
won't. Right.
but yeah, if you keep them 6 feet away from the flame, they will never know what that is,
Right.
and then they'll just
Right.
eventually just
And I
walk
and I
through it.
understand. I think it's scary for the parent.
Yeah.
I work with lots of 20 somethings, and it's usually with their mom, who are struggling with a substance abuse, right?
Mhm.
So, when I tell them these things, they're like, "Well, yeah, doc, that's easy for you to say because I'm up all night worrying about them."
Yeah.
Yes, but we're working on that with them. Right now, our job is to allow you to be a parent, not to be a cop, not to be their personal bodyguard, because that's not your job. Okay. We're working on the substance abuse. That's a different story. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know that that is scary for you to sit there and be all nonchalant because it's not in your nature.
Hmm.
Okay. And there's a lot of fears around that. And I'm giving you that as an example because it's an extreme example. But it's something, believe it or not, that I encounter on a very regular basis, right? Is
Yeah.
when your child is dealing with a substance abuse. So, but at the end of the day, how does someone heal from substance abuse? Independence. They have
So
to have
true.
independence. They have to really figure it out. So if every time they're about to fall, you come in and save them, they know you're going to be there. So they're going to go as low as possible in their life because they know you're going to be there.
Yeah.
Once that person realizes that they're really on their own and your job is to just support and be a parent, but not save them. But again, it comes from like many years of you showing them that you're not going to save them,
Yeah.
right? So that's why it's so important for me to be talking about this topic because I see it so many times in 20 somethings and even some people in their 30s that are struggling with substance abuse. Their parents are still always saving them because they're
Mhm.
waiting for them to fall in the monkey bars, from the monkey bars.
Yeah.
They're always going to catch them. And I've had a mom that, I love this family, and I work with my patients like they're my family. So, but like legit can tell you that I love them, right? But the day I met them, I said, you need to cut that off. Your own behavior has to be cut off because let's face it, there's also the realities that one day you're really not going to be around.
Mhm.
And then that's when he's going to fix himself
Yeah.
because then he's going to realize that my savior is gone and now I
Yeah.
really have to save myself. So this concept of independence goes all the way to early childhood. You have to give them the tools for them to feel independent. You have to give them the tools for them to figure it out on their own. And
Yeah.
for you to be literally their last resort. But our generation went through so much struggle because our parents had to work hard, had to really figure it out on their own. And we learned that from them. But then we also have this belief that we were neglected. Um, and yes, I think some of that is true. I think a lot of people in our generation were neglected, but we're probably one of the most resilient generations that are alive right now.
That's so true.
But then our generation is the most overprotective of their children. And right now, most of us, our children might be in, early 20s or late teens. And this is a generation right now that is struggling with cannabis use like there's no tomorrow. And they're stuck in life in their 20s. So obviously, our generation, who are the problem solvers because they pretty much raised themselves and they had to figure it out because mom and dad were working 28 hours a day, right? Oh, I can figure them out too, and I can protect them too, and I can do everything for them. No, because we're
Yeah.
doing them an injustice, and also we're doing an injustice to our society because we're producing people who can't even open can of a jar of anything.
Yeah.
They can't because they
They
need
can.
you. Right? So that's why to me that this topic is so important. And when we discussed about how that affects our parenting, I was so excited to go there because these are truths that need to be said. And if you go on social media and even other podcasts, they're not being said. They're kind of like sugar coated.
Yeah.
And they need to be said because they need to actually have change in the way that we are doing parenting. I think the pendulum always swings, but now it's swinging in a direction that is complete opposite than I think a lot of our parents. And honestly, like if we really look at our parents were like really hard workers. They still are, and most of our parents are still probably working.
Yeah.
This is also that generation is also a generation that is not going to retire at 65.
They
They're not.
keep going.
Right?
Yeah.
They keep going because for whatever reason, their parents had their own thing. So that's that generational
Yeah.
stressor. I don't like to use the word trauma for that, but stressor that we have been bringing kind of along, but then really altering the way we parent. And
That's
it's
so
just that
true.
right now, this teen something, 20 something year old generation is not able to take care of anything,
Yeah,
you
you're
know?
right. There is like an overcompensation, I think, for every generation. Whatever they kind of thought they lacked growing
Right.
up, they're overcompensating. And it is, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because there's a whole lot of conversations about how bad it's getting from generation to generation, but nobody's taking accountable. The ones who are complaining about it are the ones who are raising these children.
Hmm.
When we
Hmm.
started with the millennials, well, Yeah, you're the one who raised them. Why are you going against this? Like, what are you doing to change that? So it's a hard conversation where you have to look inward and say, oh, wait a
Mhm.
minute, that's on me. I gotta change that. That kind of leads me to the next thing that I wanted to bring, because this is where we could go on forever. But um, our children will trigger us with the way that they react will bring out reactions from us that we didn't even know we still had, right? This is like for me, I'll give an example. Growing up, you couldn't talk what was considered talking back to the adults at the time would get you a, a good little hit or some kind of punishment. uh, so now I remember when I was a younger parent, when my kids were younger, if they would talk back to me, I would have that reaction of just like tensing up and going, no, 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 you're not talking back to me. But then I realized what was happening. Uh, are there anything that what should parents be looking for when they feel triggered by their children's behaviors? The children don't behave. I'm talking about young children. um, their behaviors is not trying to manipulate you, or they're not trying to give you a hard time. They need something. They just don't know how to express it, but you feel triggered by that. So do you have any, what should we be looking out for as a parent to know that this is not, our child is not a bad child trying to test us. It's us that is being triggered right now with their behavior.
Well, I mean, first you have to identify what is the feeling that you're getting. So I try to go simple, right? Do you feel good or bad about this thing that they said or did? Okay,
Hmm.
I felt bad. Okay. So why did you think you felt bad? Oh, I don't know. That's usually the first thing, right? Oh, I don't know why I felt bad. Okay. Try to describe to me what bad feeling or maybe a bad memory that popped up into your mind right away. And then you started kind of going into that direction.
Hmm.
Oh, that reminded me of I don't know, their dad or their mom, right? Okay. So then that's that unresolved little issue that is still, you know, little scar that is still there in your soul that hasn't healed yet. But
Yeah.
they are only going to react to anything that you do or say. They're reactive. That's all. Right? But you're not. You're an adult.
Hmm.
You should have better self-control. You should have better self-awareness, right? They don't have that yet. Their mental capacity is not able to do that. Okay? So you need to be able to find out or identify what was the feeling, what did that feeling generate in you, and what was a memory attached to that feeling. Because most of the time, it's from a memory. And if you start with the memory, you'll get to where kind of like the source was. But you have to start kind of dissecting that feeling in that way. At least I have found that to be the most effective in trying to identify it. Otherwise, you're gonna get stuck there like, why did they do that? Why did they do that? They didn't do anything. Okay. They just did something that reminded you and it gave you a memory of something. That's
Hmm.
all. That's all I did. So then you have to figure it out in that direction. If you do, it's one of the fastest ways for us to do so. At least that's what I've been able to find.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's harder too if you get the pride and ego caught up in this and realizing, okay, I can't externalize this. This is a me problem. It's not a them problem. It is hard to do, um, but it is the most simple. Like you say, when we overcomplicate thing, it is as simple as saying,
No, and you
what am
you
I
have to be
feeling?
able to break it down,
Yeah,
you know?
I love
And
that.
I've just been able to find it that way to break it down the easiest way to at least start. Otherwise, you're gonna get just either resentful towards your child, mad at your child, reactive to. You can't be reactive toward them. They're little, right? They're the ones that are reactive. Their nervous system hasn't gotten that yet, right? Their prefrontal cortex hasn't developed enough for them to say, "Wait, did I do this to my mom or dad? Like, what was my
Mm.
thought process behind that?" They can't think that way. So
No,
you are the one that has to figure it out. That's all.
and you're the one who has to show it to them. So if you are being reactive, you're not teaching them what they're supposed to be learning from you. So
Right.
yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow too.
And it's difficult, especially if in the moment you're also angry, that is going to give us a reactive kind of response. So if you're angry, you need to like, be like, okay, hold on. Um, Let me just leave that here and then I'll get back to it. But
Yeah.
first I have to go back and do those few steps to kind of dissect that feeling.
Hmm. That is important to be able to take that step back. You don't have to resolve right away if you're escalating things. That's so important. You've given us a lot of golden nuggets there. I do appreciate you coming on, and I was excited to have you on because there's so much more we can unpack, but I don't want to take 4 hours of our day to keep going. We'll have to have you come back on, but I just love that and it's such a gentle approach too, like the way you have. It's not like, no, 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 we have to re-traumatize you to get out of it. It's just
No.
take a breath. Are you happy or are you angry right now?
Mhm.
It's so
Right,
simple. Like
right.
it's two emotions. You
Yeah.
don't have to identify the whole chart and then take it from there. They're bite size, and that's what I like about your approach. Is it's when you're in survival mode, not just as a parent, as an adult in general. If you're going through it, this could work for a work environment, for your relationships, or anything.
Listen, I try to teach them to them in this way because
Yeah,
it's one of the ways that they feel that they're more in control, right? They're the parent. But take that into every other relationship and every other interaction,
yeah,
but I first have to teach you how to identify it. And once you do, then you're kind of golden in a lot of issues if you think about it. Because basically what I try to do is let's get that first brain
hmm,
to take a few steps, breathe, let me figure this out, and then get that second brain, which is the more conscious, the one that thinks things through a little bit better. So I'm not as reactive, as jumpy.
yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. It really does work everywhere, even if in your finances, if you just pay
Yeah.
attention to how reactive you are, or in your business or anything, and it'll work. Everything you just said works in every single way. So that's why I love that you came on. And I could ask you so many other questions, but I'd like to ask you if you have anything coming up. What do you got going on now in the work that you do?
So right now, well, immediately what we have is this upcoming weekend, we have our first retreat of the year. We're going to Cancun, and I'm very excited. This is the first time that I'm teaming up with a therapist that I know personally, and I've worked a lot of patients together with her. But it's she's amazing. She's a trauma expert. She does a lot of the EMDR with a lot of my patients. And we put
Mm,
together this retreat. We called it the Discipline Formula. So it's basically kind of training my mind to be more disciplined, but in all areas of our lives. And then we have a life coach. One of our life coaches is coming with us, and also this a lady she's amazing. She's a sound healer and does
oh,
yoga. So we're also going to have that kind of calming, relaxing, fun part of a retreat. But then the other part, which is okay, let's put into practice. Let's get this area of my life, which is discipline, under under better control so then I can thrive and excel in all these areas of my life. So we have that coming up, and we just launched the first issue of this year of our magazine, and it's the confidence issue. And I'm very excited because it's also the first year that we're publishing it in Spanish as well. So
nice.
we're doing every single issue from now on, English and Spanish, and that's all on our website. It's free. So we're really excited about 2026 and all the things that we have in store.
That's incredible. I'll make sure to add the information in the description so people can go back to it. Before we wrap up, I do ask my guests a question, and I think I talked to you about it already, but it's what do you want to be when you grow up?
Um, Definitely a lot of being able to implement more of the spiritual part of what makes us human into
Mhm.
what I do. I mean, I already do it, but I want to be able to do more of it. I think healing in groups and in families is one of the best ways to do that, and I'm excited to be able to implement more of that. And at the end of the day, I'm one to always want to learn new things. So I'm really excited about what I'm gonna learn this year when it comes to art. I love doing art all the time, but this year I haven't decided yet what medium I'm gonna dive into. So I'm excited to do that this year.
That's exciting too, because with art, there's so many ways that you
So
can
many
approach
things.
it, especially because you're in photography, so there's so much there that you can, or any other aspect. I love that. I love that you get the creative side as well. So it's limitless. I love it. That's why I love asking this question. Thank you for playing in that. A
Thank
lot of
you.
people
Thank you.
was
That was
like,
so
"Did
fun.
she really mean that?" So, but yeah, I do. I have a lot of fun with that question. It brings out the person, like
Yeah.
you're Dr. Hector, but
Yeah.
then we get to see the other side. I love it. How can people reach you, follow you if they want to, know more about your retreat, your sign up to your magazine or
Oh,
learn more
sure.
about your work?
Our website is whitebutterflyclinic.com. Our magazine is there. Every time we have an event or a retreat is going to be on our website. Join the mailing list, which is another great way to stay connected. And our Instagram, well, my Instagram is the word doctor underscore Hector. And then the clinics is the White Butterfly Clinic also. So usually we kind of post things a little bit of everywhere, but the Dr. Hector one is it's just me. And I do like different things about learning how to self-regulate, calm the immune system, the nervous system, the endocrine system, and how they all kind of play together in the playground.
I love that. That's great. I'll put all that information in the description as well so people can have a look and follow you. Thank you again so much for joining me today. I really could keep you on much longer. You can come on anytime if there's other things you'd like to talk about. I know my audience is really going to appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. And for everybody watching, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to whichever channel you're listening or watching from. Don't forget to go check out Dr. Hector as well. Make sure you start following him because he'll have a lot of tips for you. And until next time, stay safe, stay awesome, and we'll talk soon.